You're welcome back. Now it's time for AM Talk. What are we talking about? Our discussion is on the comments by the senior minister, Yaw Osafo Marfo. He was talking about why the state discontinued the prosecution of Chinese Galamsey Queen, Aisha Huang. Let's listen to what he said.
A very good relationship with China. They're the main company that is helping develop the infrastructure system in Ghana. Is Sino Hydro. It's a Chinese company. It's the one that's going to help process our bauxite and provide about $2 billion to us. So when there are these kind of arrangements, there are other things behind the scenes. Putting that lady in jail in Ghana is not going to solve your economic problem. It's not going to make you happy or me happy. That's not important. The most important thing that is being imported out of Ghana. So we must say it's not wrong. I'm saying that there are many other things beyond what you see in these matters. And everybody is wide awake. The most important thing is that we have planned this, we have established regulations, and we are protecting our environment. And that is far more important than one Chinese woman who has
Yeah. Now, there have been many reactions to his comments. The latest is by the NDC.
The platform and the context within which the senior minister spoke clearly shows that he was speaking the mind of President Akufo-Addo and his government relative to the discontinuance of the criminal trial of Aisha Huang. It can be reasonably deduced from the senior minister's comment that at the center of Ghana's bilateral trade relations with China is an obscene willingness on the part of the Akufo-Addo government to condone plain criminality and the flagrant disregard of our laws. Ghanaians have every reason to be appalled and outraged by the honest revelations of Mr. Osafo Marfo, which reflects the inner thinking of the Akufo-Addo government. These revelations we submit are disgraceful, reprehensible, and make a mockery of the foreign policy and the much-touted Ghana beyond aid mantra of the Akufo-Addo government.
Right, let's get to it. And Mr. Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa joins us. He's a ranking member on the Foreign Affairs Committee. He's also the representative of the people of North Tone. It's very nice to see you. Thank you again for making the time to be with us. And happy Easter, right?
Many happy returns. Good to see you, Kojo.
It's great to see you too. All right, now
Sharp as always.
Oh, you're kind. You're kind. Now, before we get into it, I think it's fair that I add what was said on Mr. Osafo Marfo's official Facebook page by way of, shall we call it, rejoinder to the comments he made at the town hall. And I'm going to read through these comments very quickly. It's not very long. It was written on his page, and I quote, "What he meant was that the matter of prosecution had been dealt by a court of competent jurisdiction, and that Ghanaians should focus on the economic gains of the government and how best we can consolidate the gains. The Akufo-Addo's government is highly committed to the fight against Galamsey, to the extent of establishing an interministerial committee to deal with the worrying situation. However, there are pertinent issues we should be looking at as a nation, such as creation of employment for our teeming youth, industrialization, infrastructural deficit, domestic revenue mobilization, emphasis on technical, not grammarian education, and how to sustain funding for government policies and programs. These were the issues the senior minister was emphasizing instead of limiting the town hall meeting to the discussion of Aisha when the matter had been determined by the court. May God help us. There was a further comment because some reactions came to this one. And then there was a further rejoinder, also a very short one, and I'll read it. It said, and I quote, "The simple and straightforward message is that how long should Ghanaians go on ranting and groaning on this issue of the Chinese woman who has been deported whilst there are huge economic challenges to deal with? The government is working tirelessly to bring development to the people of Ghana, and this issue must not drag us back." This was the most simple logic and explanation provided by the senior minister at the forum. Sadly, some media outlets twisted news, which they call bad news, sells, and so they latch on it, couch their own understanding, and allow discerning minds to rain insults on great people in Ghana who have seen it all and pushed Ghana to the level we found ourselves now. Development of Ghana is key on the agenda of the President. The Vice President and the Senior Minister is in full support and working towards that agenda. May God help our homeland Ghana. Happy Easter to all. Well, Mr. Ablakwa, did that make your Easter happy?
Certainly not, Kojo, and good morning to you and good morning to all our distinguished viewers. I would like to situate this discussion within the Constitution, the supreme law of the land.
Right.
Articles 73, 74, and 75 deals with international relations, how our leaders should be guided when it comes to foreign policy decisions. Article 73 stipulates, the government of Ghana shall conduct its international affairs in consonance with the accepted principles of public international law and diplomacy in a manner consistent with the national interests of Ghana. In a manner consistent with the national interests of Ghana. This is how we ought to be guided when it comes to our foreign policy measures. The matter in issue totally deviates from what our national interest is. Our national interest, as has been well accepted in this matter, is that Galamsey is threatening our very existence. Scientists have said that if we continue at this rate, in the next 20 years, there will be no water for us to drink. We would have to import water. Ghana Water Company has talked about how their expenditure in processing water has quadrupled and exceeding that when it comes to preparing potable water for us. We have seen the consequences on the environment. Our ecology is being destroyed. It's leading to all kinds of conditions. I have read a Third World Network report that says that our women are even beginning to report at the hospital with infertility. There are, all kinds of life-changing effects on our people. This matter has to do with our very survival as a people. So you cannot have a situation where the senior minister tells us that because Sino-Hydro, a Chinese company, is going to give us $2 billion in exchange of our bauxite. Not that even if it was a grant, if it was free money. Remember that the government has been at pains to explain that it's a barter arrangement. It's not a loan, it's a barter arrangement. So we are giving the Chinese our bauxite and they are giving us $2 billion. So we already have something you want. You want our bauxite. We also need your money for infrastructure. Why should we be arm twisted? Why should we, fall over ourselves to release a lady who everybody accepts is a Galamsey queen? That's why she has gained the notorious nickname Aisha Huang. And you see here, I must say that Ghana-China relations has been on an excellent keel since the 1960s. We all recall how political ties were established by our first president. We all know how our first president fought vigorously to have China, the People's Republic of China, reinstated as a member of the United Nations. Because of that gesture of President Nkrumah in supporting China as high as the UN, China in the 1990s donated the National Theatre to us under President Rawlings. We saw how under President Kufuor they supported us with funding of the Bui Dam project. At that time, the biggest project that Ghana undertook. Under President Mills, you saw how we received support for the new foreign ministry. It continued. We saw another donation of the Ministry of Defense building. Under President Mahama, I do recall that they also pledged to grant a new Ministry of Finance, pardon me, at the time, except that that has not yet been actualized. I do not know exactly what is the state of that. So yes, there have been very good relations, and this discussion is not to hurt that relations. I am one, especially because of the position I occupy as ranking member on the Committee of Foreign Affairs. I'm one who is conscious of these ancestral ties. Very historic, very friendly. We have a strong bond. But in this discussion, we must recognize that every country has laws. As ranking member, I have seen petitions from Ghanaian nationals in China. We don't even interfere, because if you have a brush with the law in China, the Chinese law will take its course. And there are Ghanaians in Chinese jail as I speak to you, Kojo. That is how international politics works. International law ought to be obeyed. It ought to be respected. So if you come to my country as an immigrant, no matter who you are, remember a sitting member of parliament, the Honorable Amwatin, who fell foul of the law in the United States of America. He was arrested, prosecuted, and jailed. He served time in the United States of America. I am not sure that affected Ghana-US relations. I am not sure that it affected the US economy, if we are to go by the logic of our senior minister. So I must stress that those who want to make this discussion, you know, let's be careful about our relations with China. Listen to the Chinese ambassador. The Chinese ambassador virtually indicts Ghana. He says that, look, you know where your gold is. You are the ones who invite our nationals, our Chinese nationals, to come into your country, to partner you to go and carry out those illegal mining activities. You grant them visas. You don't even collaborate with us to let you know that, look, these people you are inviting, probably they have a criminal record, they are good citizens or not. The Chinese ambassador, I thought, was brutally frank with us. And he was putting the blame at our doorstep of leadership. He expected us to act. Now, those who say that, let's watch Ghana-China relations, as the senior minister said, look at how much money is going into Tanzania. Tanzania, and the irony is that the Tanzanians learned about Pan-Africanism, about standing up for your rights, about fighting the colonial struggle and defeating the colonial powers from Ghana. They learned from us in the 1950s, Julius Nyerere and others. The Tanzanians have just jailed a Chinese national who's known as the Ivory Queen, a notorious, and now she's been convicted, so we know that she is guilty as charged, notorious elephant tusk trader. She is serving time in Tanzanian jail for 15 years. 15 good years. Tanzania. It has not affected relations, China-Tanzania relations. The Chinese continue to carry out major projects. In any case, these projects are commercial arrangements, win-win situation. We are talking about Ghana beyond aid, that we want to trade. We want to be seen as equal partners. You don't engage in this. Then, Kojo, I must also make the point strongly that I disagree with those who say that, you know what, isolate the senior minister. Blame him alone. He has goofed. It was such a terrible gaffe. Let him resign, or he should come public and apologize. I say that I do not fall for that. That is an attempt at damage control. And this is why we all know that the Attorney General filed a nolle prosequi. The Attorney General of Ghana is not the Honorable Osafo Marfo, it's Madame Gloria Akufo. I've worked in government before. I know that no minister, such a high-profile case, you will go and file a nolle prosequi without discussing with the president, without express approval from the president. And mind you, Article 88 is very clear. Article 88:1 says there shall be an Attorney General of Ghana who shall be a Minister of State and the principal legal advisor to the government. Principal legal advisor to the government. 88:2 reads, the Attorney General shall discharge such other duties of a legal nature as may be referred or assigned to him by the President, or imposed on him by this Constitution or any other law. So, some people are trying to create a Chinese wall between the Attorney General and the President, and the pun is unintended, you know. That Chinese wall does not exist per our Constitution and per the operationalization of government, how our governance works. So that is one. Two, deportation. Who issues deportation orders? Aisha Huang, after we filed the nolle prosequi, cannot just show up at the airport and say that I'm going back home. There ought to be a deportation order, and she ought to be guided out of our country. That brings in the Interior Minister, the National Security Minister. The two ministries have their agents at the airports, and they carry out these deportation orders. We all know that per Article 83 of the Constitution of Ghana, the National Security Council, all these ministers are present. You have the Foreign Minister, the Interior Minister, the Defense Minister, National Security Minister, the Finance Minister. These matters are discussed at that level.
Deportation
of high-profile persons.
Right, okay.
Yes, they are discussed because these have major national security implications.
But what makes... allow me to play devil's advocate for a minute. What makes Aisha Huang a high-profile person? Is she not merely a Chinese criminal who has been caught?
High-profile because of the nature of her activities. And you have to commend the Tiger Eye Group, Kweku Bakun, Anas, Anas. They did a lot of work. I've read a lot of their work on Aisha Huang. She is linked to people in high places. I hear that even some high-profile personalities in my own party, DCs, regional ministers, former and current, political party kingpins, party executives. That makes a high profile. And remember that she's a money bag. She is not the ordinary galamsey person who is involved. She is the one who mobilizes the resources, as we are told. It is also alleged that she marshals the equipment, brings the equipment into the country. And you know this earth-moving equipment, you know, the cost. It should tell you that this is somebody who is very resourced. You know, you will want to call her a don in the galamsey operations. So this is a high-profile matter. And for you to have the Attorney General file a nolle prosequi without giving reasons. And yes, we know the Constitution gives the Attorney General that discretion. She's not necessarily obliged to tell us why. But I have just given you a rendition of how things work within government. I've served in government before for 8 years, and I know that no Attorney General on such a high-profile matter will go and file this nolle prosequi. Because if indeed it was not a decision of the government, the president did not approve of it, the Attorney General will have suffered some consequences. You can't be dismissed for that. And many ministers have been dismissed for less, acting in ways that the president did not approve of, or the president had no knowledge. And I've told you the role of the other ministers, the Interior Minister, the National Security Minister. So perhaps the anger at Osafo Marfo by some people is that he let the cat out of the bag. Because all of us were suspicious, let's face it, let's be honest, when this nolle prosequi was filed. And we saw how our vice president was leading the negotiations and kept telling us, oh, the money is coming, the $2 billion will arrive soon, we will be to transform our infrastructure. The coincidence was quite curious.
Okay.
So the cat is now out of the bag. And I say that this is such a monumental betrayal of the trust that the people have imposed in this government. President Akufo-Addo now appears to be two-faced. What he does in public when he's interacting with us, because I was one of those who was moved when the president said that he's even willing to put his presidency on the line. That was good soundbite. That was moving. It shows that, look, the political will from the very top exists to fight this canker. Then it turns out that behind the scenes, these are the considerations. And you see, I am also deeply, deeply worried about the signal this sends when it comes to our foreign policy relations. Other countries are going to pick a cue, and they'll say, oh, Ghana is up to be raped, to be exploited. Once you dangle a few carrots before its leaders, you get whatever you want and get away with anything. And that is why in my article, I am even calling on Parliament to reopen all international agreements that have been agreed in recent times. We must probe them. This is what will have happened in other jurisdictions, in other countries where their parliaments are very serious and do not take these matters lightly. Because when you listen to the senior minister carefully, he says that, look, there are other matters behind the scenes that we can't talk about now. What are those matters?
Have you, I mean, you're a member of Parliament, did you get a chance to peruse that agreement to your satisfaction? Are you confident that you've seen everything that's in it and that there ought not be any sort of prisoner exchange or, you know, leniency accorded Chinese prisoners per what is in the agreement?
Per the agreement, there is nothing like prisoner exchange. There is no provision like that, no clause. You recall that our position even was that, looking at the terms and conditions of the agreement that came to Parliament, it looks like a loan. You know, they say when it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it's a duck.
Yeah. It even uses the word loan.
Yes. So our view is that it's a loan, but government insisted. We wrote to the IMF for clarification. The IMF sided with the government that they think that it's a better arrangement since we are giving our bauxite to them. Okay, we said fine, no problem. Let's not, you know, split heads over semantics. But there is nothing in the agreement that shows that there were other considerations.
Right.
So now we need to get to the bottom of this matter. And remember that there have been other recent agreements. We have had cause to raise concern and alarm about the ExxonMobil agreement, for example, which was really a giveaway. And many analysts, many civil society organizations agree with us.
Right.
Remember that we have not fully recovered from the shock of the U.S. enhanced defense cooperation agreement. So one is asking, how are our leaders negotiating on our behalf? Why are we behaving like the biblical Esau, in a hurry to sell our birthright for just a bowl of pottage?
Okay.
Why are we doing that? Why are we sacrificing the national interest, totally trampling on the national interest in very violent violation of Article 73 of our Constitution?
All right.
That is most unacceptable.
Okay. Now, I'm sure our audience have noted that the government is not here to speak for themselves. I'm sure our audience is also getting used to that. We won't get into that particular situation. But it puts me yet again in a rather interesting situation, because in the interest of balance, I must now play devil's advocate on a position that I may not necessarily agree with. But this is the job. And I'm trying to do it well. So I've listed quite a number of points that I am thinking are questions we ought to ask about your position and the position of your party in general on this matter. There are a few, so I'll try and get through them quickly and get quick answers from you as well. All right, now, I've split them into two halves. The first half is based on the premise that the senior minister was indeed speaking the truth. The second half is based on the premise that he wasn't. He was saying something that he thought was an answer better than the truth. So, you know, yeah. So first, let's assume that he was speaking the truth. Could you read that bit of the Constitution that you read at the beginning?
Yes. Article 73 says the government of Ghana shall conduct its international affairs in consonance with the accepted principles of public international law and diplomacy in a manner consistent with the national interest of Ghana. In a manner consistent with the national interest of Ghana. All right, so these are the facts. Whether it's a barter or a loan. Ghana's infrastructure funding, pretty much the entirety of it, is hinged on this 2 billion, I'll call it facility, for want of a better word. It's hinged on that. That was made clear by the finance minister at the town hall in Accra, where he said that it is going to be a struggle to finance infrastructure because of the various, conditions under which our economy is currently So this is it. All of our roads, and there's a long list of roads that they plan to, construct with this money. All of this, starting with the 500 million that we are told has hit the accounts already, hinges on this Chinese deal. So if indeed there is some perhaps unspoken agreement between China and Ghana that, look, let go of our people when you catch them, or let go of Aisha Huang, because that is the specific one that we know of. If there is such an agreement, is it not in the interest of Ghana to let one person go home, somebody who, well, she's gone now, so she can't do galamsey anymore in Ghana. So that problem is also solved. But is it not in the interest of Ghana to do this for the people of China so we can have no problems in securing the money? It's a tough job being a devil's advocate, but let me smash through all these arguments. First of all, the national interest of Ghana must include our sovereignty, our dignity, our laws. It must necessarily include these. You can't sacrifice the laws of Ghana. I mean, especially when your own citizens have been arrested, have been prosecuted, have been jailed. My own good friend, the chairman of the appointments committee and the first deputy speaker of parliament, you recall, generated a storm in this country when he said that, look, what Galamsey is doing to us, these people are killing us. So he even wants a shoot and kill policy. many people were shocked that, it sounded extrajudicial coming from a lawyer and all that. He's a fine gentleman. But it just tells you how all of us are outraged. We just can't believe what we are seeing, how our hitherto beautiful water bodies have become, brown, polluted, contaminated. So you have a situation where your own citizens are dying. You are shooting them. You burnt their equipment. We all saw it on live television. Burnt their equipment, jailed them. Some are even pushing for a shoot and kill policy. And then for another citizen, you say that that won't help your economy in any way. Let her off the hook.
Oh, she's not a citizen, to be fair.
And another citizen of another country. That's what I intended. Yeah. That is not acceptable. It cannot be acceptable. So this does not pursue a national interest in any way. Then let's come to the other side of your argument about, just one person and you get $2 billion. We may have struggled to even come to terms with that if there was no bauxite in the equation. We may have struggled. Even if there was no bauxite, it will make it right. Because you cannot, this is about our resources, our water bodies, our ecology, our survival. Water is life. And if in the next 20 years we will not have any water, Ghana Water has warned they will have no water to process for us. We have to import water. What can be more important, germane to the national interest than that? So even if there was no bauxite, it would not be a good deal to go for that. Give us Aisha Huang, we give you $2 billion. But in this case, you have bauxite. So the Chinese are getting 2. We are getting just $2 billion, which is a drop in the ocean. All the analysts have told you, even just for Accra flats alone, you heard Honorable Atachia the last time. We need more than $2 billion just for an engineering solution. So the infrastructure gap, how much we need to solve our infrastructure problems, it's not $2 billion. $2 billion is a drop in the ocean. So I cannot accept that you come in for a bauxite, even that we took money from the World Bank to preserve it and to help that whole Hinehini forest reserve. We are going to have all of that destroyed. When we talk about the bauxite, let us remember all what we are destroying with it. All the trees, all those beautiful flora and fauna, all of it are going to be, destroyed because we are giving this bauxite to our good friends, the Chinese. And then now we give them Aisha Huang too, sending a message to all other Chinese that, look, our government day for us. They are back. No matter what you go and do in Ghana, you will get off the hook.
But wait a minute too. First of all, the bauxite has not yet been dug out of the ground. Whether it's there or not, we are trusting science, I guess, as they say.
Yes, that is confirmed.
The possibility of us defaulting on our side of this deal is still real. It can happen. And Ghana, this will not be the first time that an arrangement has been made for some money to come to us and it doesn't come. Under your government, it happened, especially with the Chinese. There was a 2 billion.
Yes, there was a 3 billion.
3 billion, thank you.
We got
3
1
billion.
Yeah,
that's right. 1 billion came. But we ended up paying them so much in penalties because we didn't meet certain conditions. So, yes, if we don't meet our side of the bargain, there is still a possibility of not getting this money. And it wouldn't be the first time either. The Chinese are not the only ones who have done this to us. We're supposed to get some money to fix this same desilt, whatever.
The Conti facility.
That's right. That never came.
It never came.
All right. So look, that is a reality.
It is.
Can you really fault a government for wanting to ensure that this time around nothing happens to affect our chances of getting the money?
So I present to you the other side of the argument. It is even because of this reality that often these pledges are made and they do not materialize, that our government ought to be very, very careful. And so if I was negotiating now, today, with the benefit of hindsight, what happened under Professor Mills when we were all excited that we were going to get $3 billion? We struggled to get $1 billion. Meanwhile, we had paid interest on the $3 billion. Eventually, we got only $1 billion for Ghana Gas. The Bui Dam project, it could not be completed on schedule under President Kufuor. It had to take the succeeding government under President Mills, and even that, the cocoa was not enough and all of that. So we have lessons to learn. So it is the very reason why I would be cautious. And you see, on a matter that you have publicly declared, that look, we cannot sacrifice, we cannot cut corners, and that our people's survival. And look, let's remember, Kojo, that Major Mahama died a painful death because of Galamsey. So we are losing some of our finest men in uniform. Our communities are being destroyed. The people's, means of livelihood. They use these rivers to drink, to farm. I'm from a rural constituency. We have the Volta River, and I know what the Volta River does for us in the Volta region. If that one too is to be polluted, my people will just die. Right. So nothing can explain this recklessness. You don't do that to yourself. We've just cheapened ourselves. It's such a betrayal, it's such an insult that I don't see what went into the consideration. And I'm not surprised that so far government has not been able to issue a statement on this. Okay.
Now, I'm told we have just 5 minutes to go, so I want to also present the other possibility. Sure. The possibility that, which kind of contradicts your party's position. Your party believes that Mr. Osafo Marfo has just told an inconvenient truth. Yeah. But I want to raise the possibility that perhaps what he said is not the truth, and that the truth is something else. That he just thought this was a better thing to say. And to make that point, I want to quote something that you yourself said here. You said Aisha Huang is linked to people in high places. Yes. You said she's the money bag. Yes. Could the explanation be simpler? Could it just be that Aisha Huang bribed the right people and got sent home rather than tried in court? Could it be that she's so well connected, so high up in our society? You talked about how someone very high up in your own party has even been implicated. Could it just be that the Chinese government had no knowledge of this? In fact, the Chinese ambassador says that when they are deporting people, they don't tell him. So could it be that actually this all happened without the knowledge of the Chinese government, but the senior minister just felt that it is a better explanation than the truth, that look, she bribed her way out of the country, or she had something on us, so we had to let her go? And bear in mind, you said that there are Ghanaians in Chinese prison today. Yes. There are also Chinese in Ghanaian prisons today. Yes. So could it just be that Aisha Huang is the unique situation, and that she secured her release because she's connected?
My brother, if this scenario you have presented is what it is, then we should even be more frightened. It is even more damning that a foreign national can pay her way through a justice system and have the whole Attorney General, the only minister that there's a constitutional provision for. I mean, you can do away with all ministries and all ministers, but as for the Attorney General, Article 88, she is the Attorney General is the only office, only ministerial office that is clearly defined, and where the eligibility criteria and all of that, the number of years you must be at the bar, can be bribed. That is even more frightening.
Well, I'm not saying the minister herself.
But I mean, she
may have been instructed to do that.
Yeah, but that is even more frightening, and I hope that is not the case. I sincerely hope that will even be worse than what we are discussing. So, you see, the government of Ghana owe the people of this country an explanation. We were all clamoring for the right to information, but why were we doing that for all these decades? It's because we want transparency. We want our leaders to be accountable to the people. So why is it that what the finance minister has put out, which we believe, because if you look at all the facts, how every other minister was acting, nolli prosequi, deportation, orders, and all of that, we know is a government position. It's just that he put out an inconvenient truth. Maybe he was not politically savvy or politically correct as his friends in the government would have wanted him to be. But we thank God that the truth is out of the bag, and thank God for those town hall meetings, because it looks like when our ministers go out there in London, New York, and others, they are more open than when they are in Accra. So the government of Ghana ought to be telling us something. They owe us an explanation.
Are you going to take some action in Parliament to secure these explanations?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I've already served notice that when we return from recess, I'll be calling for all of these agreements to be reopened. We need to have a probe into all of these international agreements to find out what the considerations are. The Honorable Osafo Marfo himself ought to be summoned to Parliament to give us further details why they had to take that decision in flagrant violation of Article 73, just disregarding our national interests. And he says that there is more behind the scenes that he didn't tell the people in London. Parliament would want to know what are all of those issues behind the scenes that made them take this decision.
Well, in the interest of making sure the record is sacred, I must clarify that one piece of information that was given by the person who posted on the senior minister's page is factually inaccurate. The person suggested that Aisha Huang's matter has been dealt with by a court of competent jurisdiction. It has not.
It has not.
And nolli prosequi was filed by the prosecution, in this case the Attorney General's office. Yes. And as a result, a court of competent jurisdiction never had the opportunity to preside over Aisha Huang's case.
Absolutely. And if you can give me 2 seconds, I just also wanted to, the other part of the scenario you put out was that she's been removed from Ghana, so she cannot deal in Galamsey. In this era of globalization, of technology, she does not need to be physically present in Ghana. She can still pull strings using technology, using contacts, even mobile phone, and she can continue to wreak havoc. So the problem that Aisha Huang presented to Ghana has not been solved by removing her from the jurisdiction. She can still be very, very dangerous to our health and our welfare.
Mr. Samuel Okujeto Ablakwa, thank you so much for your time with us. Mr. Ablakwa, of course, is the Member of Parliament for North Tongue. He's a ranking member on the Foreign Affairs Committee of Parliament.